Lauders is a brand that MacDuff bought along with our other two main brands, Islay Mist and Grand McNish, 25 years ago when the company started. So they used to be, well, in the immediate past, they were part of the Allied Distillers portfolio. So they were sold alongside Lafroig or Teachers or Tequila Sauza, those kind of products, before Allied Distillers disappeared into Pernod Ricard and Jim Beam. The brands prior to that had been, in the case of Lauders and Grand McNish, they were fairly typical of the history of 19th century blends, so coming from family companies in the 19th century in Glasgow. And in the case of Islay Mist, that was originally part of Lafroig. It was created at Lafroig Distillery back in the 1920s, and so it was their blended version of the single malt. And so our company started, as I say, 25 years ago, when sort of three executives from within the industry purchased the brands and stock and moved forward from there. MacDuff has always been focused very much on travel retail right from the beginning. The very first show they ever did was TFWA in Cannes. They couldn't get a stand to begin with, so they got a yacht or camped on someone else's stand. And so I think we've certainly had a stand now probably for the last 20 years, and it's still always a fixture for us every year. We are probably, for a company our size, more skewed toward travel retail than a lot of people would imagine. We're particularly strong in the Nordics and in various other pockets around the world, whether in Americas or Middle East or the Far East. Biggest moving brand in travel retail is Lauders, specifically Lauders Finest, the sort of the core product in the litre size. And that's really kind of what drives our strength in that category. According to the latest generation figures have just been released, and MacDuff is the number 6 supplier in the blended Scotch whisky category. That's based on retail sales value in dollars. So I mean, that's pretty impressive, because most of what we sell is at standard premium prices. Not so much of it is at super premium or aged whiskies, and so we're moving some quite significant volumes to get there. So Lauders is very much the focus on travel retail. Increasingly, though, Islay Mist has been coming up, based partly on successes we've had in domestic markets, and that's allowed us to get Islay Mist increasingly into some of our travel retail customers. Our ethos as a business within the travel retail segment is a lot. When you see some of the surveys of why consumers don't buy in travel retail, it's because they're not seeing value for money. And so we kind of think there's sometimes customers are missing a trick a little bit with some good value, good quality blended Scotch whisky, and that's what we've shown with Lauders in particular is what works. We also obviously want to trade customers up from that base, but we also understand our consumer, and they're not going to jump up and start buying something that's super premium. So we have a range which takes gradual steps up. So from Lauders Finest to Queen Mary, a slightly more premium version, and we have a couple of cask finishes with the sherry cask and the port cask. But again, not inaccessible to that consumer who's maybe looking for a more special version than maybe the Lauders that he would normally buy in his domestic market. So that's very much what we want to offer, is a value for money solution, but still something that looks premium on the shelf and is definitely in the type of segment where people are looking to buy in travel retail. MacDuff, and in particular Lauders' strength, has traditionally been in Northern Europe. So we're keen to expand beyond that. Middle East is another area where we're traditionally quite strong, more so to begin with in Egypt, places like that, but we've grown quite nicely now, as I said before, in the Gulf. Far East is probably somewhere where we're relatively weak, but where, thanks to, for example, the Singapore TFWA show, we have managed to pick up some business and to grow. Border stores in Southeast Asia, some airport business also. So the Far East is an area we want to grow in. South America, again, we're relatively weak in travel retail, although we have some good domestic markets. So if we can expand some of that domestic business, that would be good. pretty positive about the year ahead. Over the last year, we've had growth, and that's despite some markets like Egypt obviously being down because of traveller numbers. Traveller numbers were also down in the Nordics a bit, which it looked like it was going to affect us, but we kind of pulled it back up towards the end of the year. Economies like Brazil obviously had a big effect on Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay have taken a big hit from traveller numbers. So we've managed to maintain growth despite these markets being down. And so now we see signs of, for example, Brazil is coming back. The pound falling is going to help our business, at least in the short term. So we see some recovery in markets where we may have lost ground, and we're hopeful of maintaining growth in markets where we have been successful over the last year.